Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast. Tim, Claire, Jonathan, you've done it! Congratulations!
You have saved the world from unethical chocolate practices.
Finally, and
Excellent.
forever, indefinitely.
Exactly.
Long time coming.
Yeah.
You three did really well. I was very impressed by your puzzle solving. I play tested this room recently, and it is tough. A lot of those puzzles are real jumps, and you got there really in good time with a good understanding. So congratulations, it worked. You did very well.
I particularly appreciate your solving of the clock puzzle at the end, which Billy did and went, oh, I don't know if anyone's going to think of that.
The final puzzle, the fact that you have to go a certain number of steps while also jumping over previous numbers you've already placed on, it's a hard one to
drawing
find.
your own clock makes it work much easier.
I would think so. I think drawing it out from scratch helps, but just noticing it when you've already got the numbers for it, I think it was really tough. So congratulations.
Yeah, that was a great spot from not me. I had no idea what was going on.
I think, that was very good.
But yeah, that's a real talk. Did any of you have, playing through the room, did you have a favorite moment or a moment that made you feel smart or accomplished?
It took me. My moment that made me feel not smart was the fact that I'd written down all of the words with their accompanying colours, but hadn't bothered to attempt to anagram the start letters for a really long time, which I feel is quite on brand for me.
I could feel that a little bit because you said it. You said, "Oh no, I've organised them by their colours. I'm seeing if we know that the first letters might be important because we had to get the wording exactly right. I don't think it spells anything."
Yeah.
Oh no!
Just
Come back!
Just. Oh, how frustrating.
My favourite solve was when we worked out that the bottle had the word exit in it, and Jonathan pointed out it also had the word entry in. And then we took those words away, and then I, after we'd solved the puzzle, made the leap and said, that was on the sign. We don't need to know that now, but that was on the sign.
That reminds me of the time in the Severed Thumb escape room, the lack of Severed Thumb escape room, where you managed to decode something by looking through a hole in a locker to get the code, rather than finding the key and opening the locker.
Finding the key.
Just leap
to
forward.
solve a puzzle without looking at it in the way you're supposed to look at it, and with incredibly impaired vision, and Tim still managed to solve it.
Well, you know what? Yeah. I was nervous that you had forgotten about the no exit, no entry sign on the door, so it worked out great.
Yeah, but I left that piece of paper on the floor, so...
Was that we're done with that pile?
Yeah.
Actually, I did mean to ask at the top of the episode, is this once you've used something, it's done? Because one of my key jobs whenever we do escape room is filing.
Sorting, yeah.
Put everything in a corner. Stay tidy.
I've learned that from you, Tim, and it's really helped me.
For sure.
In my other
in
endeavours.
escape rooms or in life?
No,
just put everything in a corner and ignore it.
And the vast majority of them are like that, where it's a one and done. Room 3 of this mini arc
had some reusing.
A little bit in its way, but it was a deliberate using the same sort of puzzle twice, so you had to have the same starting point.
Yeah.
And then branch off it in 2 different ways, but know that it had the same rule basis going for it.
I suppose that is true of this. Everything was used once, right? Was there anything that got doubled up in this one?
No, I think it was a one and done.
No, I think it worked. I think it worked really well.
Nice.
So the door of the colour room, so that's got its colours initialised, it's separate.
Yes.
Is that just indicate that we're looking for first letters somewhere?
That was exactly what I wanted, that you wanted to look at the coloured things as first letters.
So that just put it in our heads, I think, and that's why we started looking without making the
Didn't put it in my head. I missed that completely.
And yet, when you were trying to figure out what to do in the white room, a decent amount of that time you did go, okay, we got to figure out something to do in here. The colour room. I don't know, let's go back and look at that tunnel again. So something was going on there for sure.
I think clearly as well, the fact that it is the word colour is helpful because it ties it in thematically to, okay, this is the room that says colour. We have one thing that is organised by colour. They're going to be the same. And I think that worked in all of your heads.
In our collective brain.
In our single collective brain. Jonathan, did you have a moment that stood out for you? Something made it seem smart?
I mean, I loved all the puzzles, but I also like the fact that we had that just bewildering stage, like you're used to in an escape room, going, what information do we have and what locks can we put this stuff in? And we got to the point where we've got loads of information and no locks.
Yeah.
It's just like, where do you go from there?
That is an interesting one. The idea of needing passwords and things is so common. Needing an instruction for what to do next can happen as well. It's definitely a lot rarer.
But even that, like when you don't have input moments, it's hard to like figure out the puzzle. Like, because it's so much easier when you can go like, I'm doing a puzzle and it's gonna get me 4 single numbers that are going to go into a 4-digit code, or this is going to get me a word and that word is going to be another code. So when you have no inputs, it's really hard to do any puzzles.
For sure. It was 2 interesting sticking points that when there's different directions. So this one, you had no inputs, whereas the very first puzzle of the room, which I think is pretty dang hard,
only had inputs.
All you have is 3 tufting buttons, and you need 3 buttons as your input on this elevator. And that's it. And that couldn't be more direct. And yet it is still hard.
Yeah.
True. That is a very tough puzzle to start.
And with the piano room, so when we went in, you described it as like white walls, completely bare. And before Claire sorted out the anagram for the wall echo hides secret, part of me was tempted to go in there and just start yelling to see if anything happened. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought the way it was described, that sounds like really echoey. And it's obviously some kind of input. Yeah.
Well,
and I wonder if we would have shortcutted that if I thought.
Fortunately, like you might have noticed that I handed over to Billy for a moment there. I know so little about acoustics. I would have come up with a god-awful explanation for why it did nothing.
Also, interestingly enough, I believe, at least this is how I did it in the playtest, I'm assuming it's just the way it was written, that the echo, like for me, when I heard wall echo, I went and started tapping on all the walls.
That was
to try
what
and hear
I
if there's like an
intended.
echo inside one of the walls. So we may have made that more canonical. If you'd gone in and yelled, you would have been like, okay, well, yelling isn't going to do it. You've got to go and tap each walls to look for an echo.
Which is why I wish I had more sound bounce knowledge to know what the difference between knocking on an echoey thing versus yelling at an echoey thing would sound like.
You have to be a bit more attuned to acoustics to notice that the wall sounds hollow when you're in it.
Yeah.
But so we can play with, and that's part of the benefit of having them as these audio kind
Malleable
of back and forth
rooms.
experiences.
Yeah.
Like if that probably would have skipped to the end, so we could have on the fly just been, that's not going to solve it. We'll swap to make sure it now has to be 100% wall taps.
Do you know how much in the bubble room I was just going, oh man, am I just going to let them drink? I don't improvise very often. I suck at improvising, so I left it at the bottle was empty. And then I threw in, you can just grab a bubble. But the entire time I was thinking, is this going to be better if I just let them take a swig from the drink? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Oh God, I can't think that quickly. What if it screws everything up? Let's go back to normal.
I mean, we don't. None of that is written, is it? Ideally, it's just you. There's no floating in that room.
No,
you
it was just
you
look
see
up,
the
and then
fan.
I thought, is that disappointing? Should you just float?
Yeah, it's nice to be able to float
Yeah.
in the floating room.
Yeah, I thought
enjoyed
that
the
was
floating,
nicely done. Yeah. I really enjoyed that.
So it's catching a bubble on your tongue is nice.
BFG kind of thing.
Yeah,
Well, because it happens in the actual film.
Yeah,
Right?
it happens
But
in-
I love
yeah.
that too.
the pullback and reveal that the fan is actually off. That was,
Yes, the dangerous,
I enjoyed
dangerous
that
fan.
greatly.
They just turn it off. I think you did really well. I find that first puzzle really interesting with the tufting buttons, with the on, in, if. That it is just kind of, because it doesn't feel right that those are going to have unique solutions if they're just like a random part of a word.
Yeah.
And the concept that no number up to 18 other than 9 has I and N together it just doesn't feel like it's going to be true.
Well, yeah. I mean, I immediately, said one to me,
one,
and then I could not make the others into numbers.
Right?
Again, I was there, and then I just gave up. I was like, no, this is too hard. There can't be a solution.
Yeah, it was so interesting coming up with that. Yeah, even just writing that, I just went, this seems hard to believe.
But
right? Is this happening?
And I think
then
that's
I
why-
had to make the absolute cutoff at 18 because it would have
otherwise
died
we'd have
if
had
I'd
two
gotten
INs for
19.
19. But it is true that I think on is nice for that as the first button, because on to 1 feels really clear. It's like, oh, and that's basically 1.
Yeah, it's
And
a
so
way
it
into the
primes
puzzle.
you.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
I could hear that in your voice, I think, as you sold that. You went, wait, this has a unique solution. That was nice. You could sort of hear it in your brain.
I think that's something that we're quite good at as a team. That came over when we were doing Only Connect, is that we look for the puzzle rather than looking for answers. What we do is we say, like, what are they trying to test? What are they? How can they put an answer together which is, specific
Yeah.
out of this and make a
Absolutely.
puzzle out of it?
And I think that is because we mentioned at the start of the last episode this idea of are there transferable skills from Only Connect into escape rooms? Because Only Connect as a show, it is a trivia show. Clearly, it's a quiz, but it is a puzzle show. So much more than any other show on any other type of kind of quiz or trivia. Like so often, it is about puzzle searching and puzzle skills and being able to see like what could these be? How could this have a solution? And it's much more of a game. And so to me, it feels like there's a lot of overlap in the kind of skill set that it requires. Like as you said, that helps in escape rooms. Being able to see something and say, well, hold on a second. How could this be a puzzle? How could this be played with? What's the game behind the clues they're giving me? I think is an incredibly important skill.
Even just things like in this room where you get those letters C, E, A, B, B, E, F, and having at least one person on a team be able to spot, hey, those are all music notes. And just the little moments of recognition in different zones.
Yeah, that was a great get. I'm not sure I would have got that. Definitely not as quickly as it was got. Was it Tim got it? Yeah.
Well, I think it's an Only Connect staple, notes and sort of the Solar, Ti, Do, etc. So it's I don't know, that just jumped out at me.
It's almost like it's like a checking moment, right? Like you see that they're all below G, and you go, these could be notes. So I'm now not going to try and like anagram them too hard. But if there was suddenly an M in there, you'd be like, okay, now I've got to do something. I'll check the notes.
When you see a cryptic list of numbers and none of them goes above 26.
Exactly. If you see a list of numbers, as soon as you're thinking alphabet until you see 27, and then you go, great, that's not alphabets anymore. Now we're going to completely change. And I
was making sure not to get myself into the severed thumb loop there, though.
As it is now known and shall be known throughout the world.
Just, we've made an assumption on what this puzzle is, but just hang on, take a step back, just make absolutely sure.
And that is a really common problem. And I think from this point, I'm going to use the severed thumb loop as a good term for it because it does happen a lot. There is a tendency in real escape rooms, and I think especially in these sort of audio versions, that people will get an assumption and they will say, this is now true. And they'll put it in the same place in their brain as all the other facts that the room has actually given them, right? So you'll have it in your notes, it'll be like, C, E, A, B, B, E, F, that is true. Looking for a severed thumb, that is true. That was told to me. That was 100% given. And I do this a lot. Like I find when I'm playing, I'll see something that suggests something else, and I'll just, my brain is like, yep, that's now a true fact. And later on, you'll be like, well, what about this clue where you said that, IN has to mean one N? Like, it was clear that you said that.
Even just little things like we were in an office. There was a half desk. Surely there's a half chair to go along with it. Didn't mention it, but maybe your brain would have just put some vital importance on there.
Yes,
being
and
a chair
so you might be like, okay, and now that we know there's half a chair, and we know there's half. So it happens a lot, and I think it's a something to get over with escape rooms. And I do this actually, especially. We have another show which is Solve This Murder, where I try and solve murder mysteries that Danny creates. And that hugely is a catching point, right? Because you talk to someone and they say like, oh, I wasn't there at 2 a.m. And then you're like, great, that person was not there at the time of the murder, da-da-da-da-da. And then even later on when you find out the murder happened at midnight, not 2 a.m., you still think, well, in my notes, I know that person was not there for the time of the murder. That's what I internalized from the earlier conversation. It's a tricky thing.
I feel like that's something we had to think about quite a bit on Only Connect as well, right? It's very easy to tunnel vision in on something, and
I noticed that when watching at home, you get stuck.
Yeah,
especially
when you're sort of under time pressure and you're panicking and you're thinking, oh gosh,
especially on the walls.
Yeah, the wall must be tough. Once you see two or three that you've already ascribed a category to say these two things have the connection that they are people who fought for the Russians. Great. These are definitely people who fought for the Russians. And now we need two more people. And you're just not going to find it because the actual connection was that they're both different types of blue. And it's just, you're like, oh,
actually, it's funny you said blue because in our final, we got stuck in that situation on our final wall. Yep. Exactly that. Going, it's the three main colors plus something else. So do that. And it just wasn't working and had to back out and find shades of blue. And that's stuck in my head as like a...
Yeah, shades of blue.
Just challenging your assumptions. And
it seems like one of those ones that, there's going to be like 8 different shades of blue. We can't start with that one. But, we were like, we always... For the wall, we sit back, we pause it so we can sit and have a minute for ourselves for it, then press play, and then just screaming at the TV, panicking. Just going, come on, hurry, please, hurry.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, because I guess I like these sorts of puzzles that question your assumptions, right? That's partly why I pulled out the moment where we had loads of information, because it's so, you kind of have your mantras, or you'll have your sort of standard things to go back to and go, right, what are we missing? What are we, what's present, and what's the most elegant way of putting this all together? Thinking what information do we have and what locks do we have is one way of resetting yourself. I think we had
That's
one
true.
of the things we were doing when we were practicing Only Connect was figuring out how to do that and how to go stop, reset.
That's a good idea. And yeah, in Escape Room, there are lots of points for that. A lot of what do we have in our inventory right now? What are the obstacles that we've got in front of us?
And there was a moment during this
Oh.
episode where I'm sure at least one of you went back and said, hold on, let's go back over this. We've done this. We don't have, we've used the elevator buttons, this, that. And that is a key part of it, like trying to just like clear your cache of all that unnecessary data. Get it out of the way.
Delete those cookies.
Get back to a clean stuff.
I will say, as far as Only Connect puzzles go, I think that is one of the ones that gets me every time, is if it is the connections round, not the connections round, the ordered, what comes last round.
Sequence.
Yeah, the sequence, thank you, that's a word. When it ends up being clues that lead to like a first letter of things spelling out an important or topic, like categorical word for them. Those ones I never get. Like, I don't know, Beatles-esque words that end up spelling help. With their first
but that
letters.
has to be something that's in your head already, I think. That has to be, in your consciousness that's sort of jumping out at you.
Yeah.
So there was one episode years ago, which we went on to like season 4 or 5, when it was CRUD, and the word CRUD, which is CRUD, which is database operations. And because I do that day to day, I mean, instantly, and there's a 4-letter acronym for database operations. It starts with C. But because that word is in my head, like right at the surface, it's easy. But there are plenty of words which are not anywhere near the surface, but you could look at afterwards and go, oh yes, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like whatever you did yesterday.
That's just
I'm reminded that there was one on the show, wasn't there?
We
That was acronyms, or it was like an acrostic, and it's so frustrating watching it back, because there's a point where I say, hang on, there's lots of numbers in there. There's always a word at the beginning of it. And then it just never quite follow through. And then everyone sort of, when the answers are revealed, we're all sort of head in hands.
You're talking about 14, aren't you?
I think I remember that one, and I remember staring at that one and going, I can sort of see there's something here. I cannot figure out the logic behind this. And then at the very end, just going,
always a letter.
And then just being at the end of it going, oh, fine, I guess it works and makes sense, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't remember this puzzle. What was this one?
It was a little poem, or so it was rhyming couplets. The first 2 lines in the first clue were started with F and then O, and each line was it each line or each clue?
Each line was a set of numbers that added up to 14.
That added up to 14. So 4, and then the last. Yeah. So the last one was.
Puzzle.
Oh. I know. Was that against Discotheque?
Discotheque. It was the
stumped us all.
Yes, there are some tough ones that pop in occasionally. We've had we have a friend who has also been on the show a few times who writes questions for Only Connect. Occasionally.
Jim.
Jim Fishwick.
Yes.
Our tendency now is anytime there's a question we don't like it, we're sitting home and go, come on, Jim. What is that terrible one? I can't believe you put that one. No matter
we have no idea who wrote each question, but
it's always Jim. I can't
Jim's
believe
fault.
you did that one. Bad wall.
It's been
come
lovely,
on,
actually.
Jim.
So there's it was following the episode's airing, actually tweeting about it, and on Twitter, we get to interact with the question setters, or there's the people who are like, oh, I did the walls for this one. It's really good, and actually now interacting with and becoming friendly with these question setters, you get to see their style, and you go, oh, and then you can kind of go, oh, that's an Alex wall, oh yeah, these are, it's so fascinating, seeing everyone's personality come through in the different questions that get shown.
And You definitely do. People who come onto this show definitely do that. You can tell when they've listened because they definitely, one of the first things they do is go and check the door.
Check the back of the door.
I'm so sorry we couldn't pay that off for you.
There was some important doors.
Yeah. So I think it's important not to overuse that.
Oh, you trapped me a little bit. You
guessing.
asked about whether the door to the the white room closed behind you, and I just on the spot had to realize, oh yes, it is of vital importance for when you deal with the piano that it has closed behind you, so that you can open it up somewhere else. Whew. But it still meant that I couldn't pay it off, and I just had to make this room continue to be one big disappointment.
Isn't it refreshing in an audio escape room where you can just say the door closes when it opens? There's an entirely new room back there.
That's nice.
Without having to do like 6 months worth of engineering and
very
setting up a huge
select physical
rig.
rooms that can pull it off.
This is like the animation world of escape rooms.
Exactly.
So obviously in live action TV, you've got to jump through a lot of hoops to make that door open.
I could have thrown a zebra into this room and it could have done anything you ordered it to do and it would have worked.
Yeah, we can do whatever we want. You go to the moon. You're floating through space. There's no gravity in this room.
Well, we did actually fly in this room. That's hard to do in escape room without a lot of wire work.
Yes. Again, it really ruins the illusion when you drink the little fizzy lifting drink in a physical escape room. The GM has to come in and attach a harness to you. And,
Just take away the magic.
Takes away the magic.
As for just talking about my writing of this room, I'm looking at my notes for it. Basically, I don't think anything actually changed through it. It looks like it follows exactly what I planned, except that I wanted to say no entry, no exit, and I have a little etc. written there. I clearly wanted more rules to cut words out of and then got very tired of that very quickly. Coming up with a word that could fit the word entry in it, trying to come up with a real one that would also have some musical notes. Obviously no luck because you ended up on Trabify. Yep, that's true. It didn't last too long. Beyond that, I've got lots of, I don't know if you can see anywhere on my notes here, you can see lots of scribbled out clocks. Because largely I just kept, I had my own rule and then I just kept getting it wrong. Every time I tried to draw the clock out, I accidentally would do 3 spaces for half of it and 4 spaces for the other. It all became a bit of a mess. And I think the other most difficult thing about this room was I had written out the words wall echo hides secret and then coming up with disturbing images for each of those letters. You can tell that I started failing hard when I had to put elevator in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Or apple.
Yeah, very disturbing
spooky.
apple. Ooh.
I mean, I like how you decided to challenge yourself with the haggis. You were like, H, I know what's gonna.
There was nothing else. I could have gone with a hot dog, but no, it had to be haggis.
What about a homunculus? People are not going to guess homunculus.
H. Edgar Hoover. Yeah, that's gonna.
Everyone hates Hagar the Horrible.
So with the clock puzzle, how did you decide? I guess you had to figure out what information to give us, and then
that is something that I actually
up into 2 bits.
Have a note on. I do have straight away. I've got fan goes to desk and half clock goes to desk. So I just have number pattern on clock plus fan. And then in a slightly different font, it says +4 spaces each time, small, big time on desk image. Makes perfect sense. I don't know how anyone could misinterpret that. But then, I wanted a half clock because Willy Wonka's office has half things in it in the movie. And so I decided that was essential. And then this fan, I figured, and I do have some question marks here saying, how much information do I need to put on this fan? And weirdly, the big question I have was, do I need the 3 there, or can that one be left blank? Because what if it's too easy to just guess what the missing ones are? Because that's only 4 missing spaces.
That is true.
But the 3 clearly has to be there. You need the early numbers as starting points. That would have been absurd to not have it.
Yes.
That was a really nice way to use the world and the story in the puzzle. I mean, even though the half office thing is never explained.
It's such an odd thing in the movie.
But it's
in
like
a half office.
In anyone who's seen the film, it's a key part of the image of the end, and it was really nice to use that in a puzzle.
I tried to have as many of the key things from the movies as possible, and I would say the only things that I didn't have that I can think of off the top of my head, the weird vehicle that shoots cream at them right before they get to the TV room. It's because I don't have the words to describe it that I couldn't put it in a room. What is it?
Yeah, it's like a laundry detergent
never even
train.
explained. Yeah, it's a foam tuber.
They're just crying as they're suffocating in bubble foam. And the other thing, I had no everlasting gobstopper. I tried to I had the inventing room going on, weird stuff happening in there, and I tried to make the purview, like the whole point of the everlasting gobstopper is you're working for this external guy to try to get something, and I still tried to have that as your boss in this, Ken Arthur. Thank you, Patreon donor Ken Arthur. I figured that was a good substitute for Arthur Slugworth.
Lovely.
And so I tried to sort of just lean into that side of it a bit more, that your boss is this figure like controlling what you're doing, as opposed to the specific thing of an everlasting gobstopper. Also, I had no idea what you could do with a puzzle about that. Can you think of anything?
And no, but you also saved our audience from every time it got mentioned, having me in the background going, "Here I stand with my everlasting gobstopper."
You didn't know that song existed until yesterday.
I did. I just didn't think you two had done a cover of it. That's what I did. So that's you ruined it.
This gobstopper will last forever.
Exactly.
This gobstopper will last forever.
I know in an earlier room in this arc, he used the wallpaper as a puzzle. Was that
true?
Was that a taste-based puzzle?
Absolutely it was.
Ah, brilliant. Because I did a smell-based puzzle in Poland when I was
Did you?
there.
Oh,
It's
it's tough. We've done one
Yeah.
smell-based puzzle. We've definitely seen escape room owners talk about them before, and they're really difficult because how finely attuned is any individual's sense of smell?
Yeah.
I remember we were at a convention in the Netherlands, and we saw someone had like a escape room in a box style thing that involved a smell
And
puzzle.
you could they were demonstrating some of the things there, and it was so
It's
hard.
so hard because they'd be like, "Don't you smell that? Doesn't that smell like elderflower?" You're like, "I don't know."
It's
maybe.
kind of like that thing where it's, I can't remember the specific details, but something along the lines of like 90% of artificial fruit flavors, they're all just basically apple in slight modifications.
Yeah.
And it's like, yep, that's what these smells are like to me. They all smell a little bit like a fruit.
If I remember it right, in that smell puzzle, they'd already shown us some images of fruit, so oranges and bananas and coffee and things. So we had that in our heads.
Okay.
You know, we had things to already like hook the smells on, so it wasn't
I
quite.
I have also heard an
I'd have struggled
interesting...
to recognise a haggis under these circumstances.
Yes, you're in a tunnel full of smells that are flashing
You
past.
say that, but I had a chocolate flavored haggis in Edinburgh a few months ago.
What?
No, sorry,
Oh.
haggis flavored chocolate.
Oh,
And it was
I can't
really
decide which is
distinctive.
weirder.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
really
chocolate and
distinctive
haggis
because
is
it was
really
all,
better.
Peppery.
yeah, it was all the
right.
mace and nutmeg and things like that in it,
Yeah.
and it was like
That's nice.
unmistakable.
I have heard an interesting thing. I don't know too many intricacies about how smell works, but I hear that in a lot of smell-based room puzzles, you will typically have coffee in there because apparently the smell of coffee is amazing as a palate cleanser.
Yeah, like recess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
scent
Oh,
palette.
that's clever.
So that will
People
often be
use
one
it
that
to
they use.
disguise, like to overwhelm. So if there are other bad smells around, people will use coffee to mask it as well because it's so
Oh, it's
cleansing
like
of the palate.
did not know this.
actually about tomato juice and skunks
Yes,
that we saw
just-
today.
Yes.
masks the skunk smell. But
It doesn't cure it,
saturating
it
you
just
with
makes you
tomato
unable
smell.
to smell anything else.
I
You're
would say the
supposed
one
to bathe
thing.
in ketchup if you get sprayed by a
Yes.
skunk.
The thing that it also reminds me of is, so you know, sometimes you go to a room, you do a smell puzzle, because they're trying to use different senses. I will say once we have done a temperature-based puzzle that I thought was very impressive.
Oh, that was
Wow.
unbelievable how well that worked.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
With
was stunned.
This is warmer than this thing is warmer than that thing, and needing to like, it was you know, this is cold, this is hot, this is
Wow.
warm, this is, and it was really impressive. It was really well done. And yeah, I've only ever done that once. I've only seen it one room. It was fantastic.
So yeah, what would you do with an everlasting gobstopper puzzle? Just make them different temperatures?
I think
Different flavour
I
gobstoppers?
think if you were playing with an everlasting gobstopper, you'd have to play with the fact that like a classic gobstopper, as you like suck on it, it changes color as layers disappear.
But how can the layers disappear if it's
I
everlasting?
reckon you'd be like, well, the everlasting gobstopper, you still want that, so it like cycles through forever, so it keeps changing.
Like a
Yeah.
chameleon.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
and I do some like color change, flavor change stuff with the everlasting
That's
gobstopper.
interesting.
Like what
know
order
what?
do the colour layers
Actually-
go in?
You know the chewing gum famously goes through different flavors.
Yep, which
That's-
it
that's
does
a-
in room 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we play a little bit of that. What if you have time travel and you have to carbon date various everlasting gobstoppers that have been sitting for 10,000 years?
That's in the Great Glass Elevator room.
You send the
I hear there's
gobstopper
time
back
travel
in
in that,
time
maybe?
to get Tutankhamun to use it, and then you can extract his DNA from the saliva on the on the
Perfect.
everlasting gobstopper.
That's,
you get a
that's
reincarnation
the
of
ancient Egyptian
Tutankhamun,
room that we've all been asking
and then
for.
he can read the hieroglyphics on one of the walls to solve the puzzle.
Craft.
Really hear your forensic training coming
This
through.
is design. This is how you do it.
All right. We're getting on in time. Should we start?
Yes, we should probably finish up in a second. Does anyone have any final thoughts or interesting questions or things about the room? You don't have to, but if anyone does, otherwise I'll move on.
How does this experience compare to your real world escape room experiences?
It was really fun. I mean, it felt escape roomy. I mean, it's nice to be able to like jump about between different destinations, which is something you can't normally do. That's really fun. But yeah, I had a great time with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Those puzzles really
Thank you
kept
so much.
us working.
I'm so glad. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for coming on and playing the room. It was wonderful to have you. You all did fantastically.
And not just for that, but thank you for being a part of the British quiz show, the British quiz show scene, because that is extremely, extremely important to me. I mentioned a while ago off recording that we spent Christmas in London a few years ago. There was one day of that holiday where Billy, you and your family, you'd gone off, you were having fun, you'd gone to Brighton Pier whatever, and I just went, no, I'm still jet lagged. I'm going to curl up on the couch, put on Channel 4 and be happy.
Quizzes.
Lovely.
But yeah, look, we had so much fun watching your season of Only Connect and getting through that. It was really impressive to watch that. So
it seems like to me,
it was so much fun doing it.
For Mastermind is a good comparison. When I was on that, the scariest moment is the first question, not knowing the level of difficulty and just wanting to get the first question right, and that will be enough. Is Only Connect much the same? Because it feels like you don't know what sort of level of question to expect. Is this going to be something that you recognize? Is it going to be something that you even know as just trivia knowledge? It feels like you don't have a clue what they're going to throw at you.
Do you know what the hardest thing for me was? Well, right at the top of every episode was having to make small talk on camera. It's just not come naturally to me. So doing quizzes and puzzles, I trust myself to do okay at them. That's fine. If I don't know the answer, that's fine. If I do, fine.
I think Victoria thrives on people not being comfortable with small talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to these nerds. I mean, my absolute favourite thing about Only Connect was being the people that those questions were written for, like, you know, being the first people to do them, because every other time I've watched TV and like seen those people answer the questions, I'm like, we're the first ones. It's so, and I feel like that about this podcast as well. We were the first ones to do this one, apart from obviously the play testing. You know,
that was just
that's just me. I don't count.
But it's such a privilege, and like I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm so glad.
Such a good experience.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
And thank you everybody at home for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you wanted to help grow the show, tell a friend, leave a review. Go if you work for a small town newspaper, write an article about your favorite podcast, us.
It has to be us.
It has to be. No, don't write it about anybody else. I don't want to see a small town article about Finish It. I want to see it all about Escape This Podcast. So thank you for doing. Thank you for writing that article, everybody. And if you want to help support the show, you can also sign up for the Patreon. Anybody at any level has the chance to appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
We had a whole swath of them for this arc, and for this room, I think Chan is the particular MVP.
Yes, the standout NPC.
Thank you so
the
much.
MVP NPC for this room.
That's the one.
And there's also, if you want to hear the playtest, all of our $5 donors get a new bonus episode every week, including all the playtest audio for these rooms and trying to solve little 2-minute mysteries and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So you can check all that out. So thank you, everybody who supports us over there. It's what keeps these shows going. So I think that's all good. I think we're done.
Data, is there anywhere that you want to direct people?
Any projects in your lives you want me to send people to?
You may see us later this year on BBC television in another episode. I can't say exactly when or who we're facing, but it could happen.
What the show is?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Could be absolutely anything.
I have absolutely no online presence at all, so that's the only place you can find me.
Bake off, bake off, bake off.
Oh, Only Connect Bake Off. We'll give you a series of less and less obscure ingredients to try and make this cake. Here. Wonderful. All right, well, it was lovely to have you on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for playing. Thank you, Danny, for writing such a great room. Everybody say bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us through this chocolate factory.